Assalamu alaikum and welcome to this episode of Youth Ignited with me, Yaseen Kippie. So for the past few episodes we've been speaking about different foundations through which we understand the challenges we face as Muslim youth as well as youth in the globalized world we live in. We've looked at the social and intellectual challenges, but also issues such as substance abuse and how do we understand philosophy and Islam. Today's topic is about psychology and mental health. Now, we've been trying to actually record this, but we've been laughing this whole time. Tanya, welcome. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So, Tanya, you're all the way from Texas, the United States of America. But the issue that we're going to be speaking about today, mental health, which you can elaborate about what that is, and there's certain misconceptions as well. The issue that we'll be talking about today is not really something that affects, certain people in certain parts of the world, even though America is a very corporate, place, and oftentimes the statistics are terrible there. But with regards to, even in my own community, the Muslim community, according to the Psychological Institute of South Africa, 1 in 5 youth either attempt to commit suicide, or they think about it, or they actually are successful in committing suicide. And often these mental health issues are bypassed as something as, oh, there's a jinn, or why aren't we setting enough Quran, why don't you go see the Imam or something. So these misconceptions, can you tell me a little bit about that and about your story as Tanya Khalid from Texas, United States?
Yeah, so I was diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder when I was around 12 or 13.
Yeah.
My father had it, and whenever I was diagnosed with it, I was diagnosed with it, and there was options. There's medications that you can take, that you can go to therapy. There's a lot of solutions that they provide in the States. My parents are, I guess you could say, liberal in the sense that they didn't automatically think it was a jinn or something to do with spirituality.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they didn't necessarily want me to take medication that I would be dependent on for the rest of my life. Mm-hmm. And that's fair. Although, on the other hand, if you take medication away, you should replace it with something else. And I don't think, for me, it was replaced with therapy or anything at an early age. Mm-hmm. I decided to do that for myself later on in life. Yeah. And because of that, it was a lot harder to adjust and learn how to live with the disorder. Yeah. But I feel very strongly that if you have a disorder, whether mental or anything else, it's something you have, it's not who you are.
Yeah. With regards to your journey throughout life, and you're in your 20s currently, and things have gotten dark, and they've also gotten, there's always light at the end of the tunnel. Can you describe, just for the audience's sake, the condition and the dark states that you found yourselves in at times?
Okay, so for me, well, in general, generalized anxiety disorder is people feel anxious all the time for different reasons. Yeah. And people who have the disorder tend to feel that way to such an extent where it inhibits you from doing other things in your life, right? Like whether it's going to work or school or this or that. Right. For me, I was a neat freak. Okay. And my room was always tidy. I was always really organized, and I was that kid. I didn't ever like anything to be on my face, and I was very like OCD in that way. But it was natural to me, and that's how I liked to keep things. Yeah. When my anxiety started setting in, you could see it in that sense where my room was suddenly always a mess, and I didn't have energy or motivation to do anything, whether to keep up with my room or go to school or go to work. So that's what it looked like for me. Yeah. For everyone else, I feel like you realize that it's more of an issue than just common anxiety that everyone has in their life from one thing or the other whenever it starts taking over your life.
Yeah, so I mean, like with regards to school, one of the things that I see often, people, like for me, and I don't often have these issues, but I see people, when it comes to examinations, they are overstressed, but it's really simple tests or something. So what advice would you have to people who don't really know that they have a particular disorder at the very early stages of something? One of the things one of the producers mentioned beyond that, at what stage should we actually go to the doctor, or at what stage should we know how to be treated, etc.?
Yeah, so for me, even though I was diagnosed with it and went with my parents to the doctor, this, that, whatever, what happened initially was that I felt sick all the time. and I had a fast heart rate, or I was feeling faint, or for some reason or another I wasn't eating well. And so we went through all these medical procedures and tried to figure out if there was something wrong with my heart or this or that, and it all came back to anxiety.
Yeah.
So first things first is, you veto out all of the possibilities of it being anything else or physiological stuff. And then for me, it was realizing that it was anxiety. And as an adult, I went myself and, started going to therapy and just changing your lifestyle. I feel like for me, the biggest thing was to realize that it was inhibiting me from doing other things and that I was feeling anxious all the time. And because of that, I realized that I have to go to bed at the same time every day so that I can wake up at the same time every day. People tell you these things all the time, to sleep well, to exercise, to do all these things, but until you start doing them, you feel like they're just common advice that people are saying. And for me, I didn't do it when everyone else told me to do it. I did it whenever I saw other people who had anxiety do it properly and change their lifestyle, and I saw how it affected them positively. And then that's what encouraged me or inspired me to actually follow through and do the advice that everyone was giving.
Yeah, which is very interesting because often people follow when they see someone else doing that. So we're at the early stages. Who did you surround yourself with in order to actually find a way to actually overcome these challenges that you were facing? Was that a component at all?
Well, my first couple of years growing up, I didn't really do anything about it. I just lived with it, and it was very hard, and a lot of things suffered in my personal life. And then eventually I started smoking weed.
Okay.
And I honestly haven't really stopped that because I feel like that's been the one consistent thing that's been in my life that has helped me more than any other significant change.
Yeah.
And that's just me, and I'm not justifying it, but at the same time, I also had to make lifestyle changes and exercise and do other things. And when I did those, I felt better. But it's about it's an endless cycle. How are you going to have motivation to take care of yourself when you don't have any motivation in the first place, right? So for me, that was spirituality. It was knowing that there's times when no one else understood nor cared to do anything about your illness or the things that you're going through, but God knows. Yeah. And He knows that everything I'm going through, and I don't know, it's nice knowing that someone's there even when someone's actually not there.
Yes, I totally understand that. Now, we often see people seeking these highs, just to escape from that reality of the condition that, we've been placed into. But another thing is that we need to know where to actually direct our energy. And so when people, they go into smoking, marijuana, weed, and all these things, we call it daha in South Africa, and all of these things, often, or even, loud blasting music, which doesn't really have a positive effect on a person, but it does temporarily take you away from that, vacuum of depression and anxiety. The way that I often see, and even though I'm not diagnosed with a certain condition, I do have those moments of relapse that I do feel I feel down, at that moment, and it can be, and either we tune out the movies just to get away from everything, but a positive way to go is that Islam really does give you life. And one of the verses that is often quoted, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu istajibu lillahi wa lirrasul idha da'akum lima yuhyikum. Respond to the call of God, to that which will bring you to life. And so that's really the idea. And so after the break, I want to ask you about how did this affect your relation with Islam and with Allah. And so thank you. After the break, we'll be speaking more to Tanya Khalid.